I recently bought a new mixer, KitchenAid Pro 600 series. It only took me 4 years, one practice purchase and return, documented in my YouTube video from 3 years ago, and a viewer survey with over 300 responses to make this little purchasing decision. I know there are support groups for impulsive shoppers. Are there support groups for indecisive shoppers? Let me know, because I'll sign up. I have since used the mixer for 6 months and I am finally ready to give you my review. This is sort of a long story, so if you want to jump to a particular topic, timestamps are in the description below. The mixer you've seen in all my videos until recently is my 20-year-old KitchenAid. It still works, but I was worried that it's getting a little old. Parts of it are literally held together with tape. It has a metal piece that tends to pop out and requires occasional banging back in with a hammer. That's why I taped it in. It is also not the best mixer for bread. Its motor works like a champ, but the C-hook doesn't give you the most even gluten development. So 4 years ago, I decided to splurge on whatever Cooks Illustrated and series is recommended as the best mixer, which is KitchenAid Pro. Quite frankly, I thought it sucked. The motor sounded like a cat strangling a parrot, and it couldn't whip 2 egg whites. I made a video comparing it to my old mixer and then returned it to Amazon. The comments on that video were some of the most polarizing I've ever seen. Half of the people were sympathetic and told me stories of their KitchenAids burning out. Many people also complained about their mixers having trouble with small quantities, typically required for home cooking and baking. Kenwood brand came up a lot as a slightly more expensive but better alternative to KitchenAid Pro. The other half of the comments told me I was an idiot. Apparently there is a screw that allows you to adjust the bowl height. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And after reading Stella Park's article on this topic, it sounds like I was not the only idiot. I didn't have any other appliance in my kitchen that didn't come factory calibrated. If this adjustment was needed, it might have been a good idea to put a big sign inside the bowl, making it impossible to use the mixer without the adjustment. Since I already returned the mixer, I couldn't try adjusting the bowl, and after watching my brother's 3-year-old KitchenAid artisan mixer burn out while I was visiting him, I wasn't too eager to try another KitchenAid. I even parted with the idea of a new mixer altogether. I mean, my cranky old one still worked, right? So, what happened? Why is this race car red sexy thing now in my kitchen? What happened was that I spent the day baking brioche with my friend Valerie Coulet, who is a brilliant baker. She used KitchenAid Pro, that very mixer I returned, and I was floored with how well it kneaded bread dough. No need to scrape and flip sticky dough 5 times to ensure even gluten development. It was a dream. Sure, I could go buy this mixer, but is this what my viewers would be working with? To find out, I asked you guys to fill out a survey telling me what mixers you have. I was hoping 20 people or so would answer my survey. To my surprise and delight, I got 354 responses. And here are the results. The blue and gray areas are the people who only have handheld mixers or no mixers at all. To my surprise, some of these people said that they bake bread regularly, which is why I am now posting hand kneading instructions whenever possible. The rest of the circle are people with some sort of stand mixer. And it's no surprise that most of them have a KitchenAid. That's the huge pink red area. KitchenAid does kind of have a monopoly on home mixers. What did surprise me was how many people had KitchenAid Pro. I didn't think too many people would splurge on it, but I was wrong. A few of you have Bosch and Kenwood, and this was the catch-all category for all the other brands. Until I saw these numbers, I was actually pretty serious about Kenwood. But the survey results made me reconsider. I'm sorry, Kenwood. I still feel a little guilty that I didn't give your mixer a try. But it's a KitchenAid world out there, and I want to test my recipes on equipment that's as close as possible to what most people have at home. Here is what I needed to learn to use my new mixer productively. The first thing you want to do when you get your new mixer is put a dime in the bottom of the bowl, fit it with a paddle attachment, and run it on low speed. If the dime is spinning continuously, the paddle might be scraping the bottom of the bowl and you want to lower the bowl. If the dime is not moving, you need to raise the bowl. What you want to happen is for the dime to gradually migrate around the bowl, moving about ½ an inch on each revolution of the beater. This ensures that your bowl to beater clearance is 1/16 of an inch. To adjust the bowl, stop the mixer, unplug it, and lower the bowl. This will expose the screw that adjusts the bowl. In order to access it, you'll need to remove the beater. Turning the screw counterclockwise raises the bowl and clockwise lowers the bowl. It won't turn much. The whole range is only 90 degrees in either direction, so play with your mixer until your dime moves at this pace. You might need to make this adjustment once in a while if your bowl height gets out of whack. By the way, the tilt head models like the Classic and the Artisan have this screw too. Google for your mixer model and bowl adjustment to find instructions on how to adjust your bowl. Most recipes for bread dough will recommend that you put your dry ingredients in first, then add the wet. This works just fine in tilt head KitchenAid models. If you do this in the KitchenAid Pro, the dough will not come together at all. This completely threw me off the first time I bought this mixer. I thought my batch was too small or something. Turns out my batch size was just fine, but the procedure needed to be different from what most recipes suggested. In the KitchenAid Pro, you either need to start with a paddle attachment until the wet and dry come together, and then switch to the dough hook. Or start with the wet ingredients on the bottom. This way the dough hook works great from the very beginning. Why aren't all the recipes designed this way? I don't know. Starting with wet on the bottom works for all mixers. I tested it on my old tilt head KitchenAid and it worked fine. When I read my manual that you should knead bread doughs no faster than speed 2 and no longer than 4 to 6 minutes, my first thought was, what? It can't handle it? After trying it, here are some observations. The spiral hook is extremely efficient. I don't need as much time or speed as I would in my old mixer. No, I don't believe second speed is always enough, but speed 4 is plenty and there is no need to crank it up more than that. At least most of the time. Don't freak out about the burning smell. The first few times I used the mixer, I got a weird smell from the motor. The instructions manual said that's normal, and it did get better after 4 or 5 uses. Part of me still objects to this. In my ideal world, a mixer company should put its money into its motors, not into offering you 20 different colors so that your mixer can match your curtains. But I can't hold this against KitchenAid. They're just giving people what people want. Once I understood all these quirks and made all the adjustments, I've been in bread dough heaven. Keep in mind that all my breads use wet doughs. I don't know how well the motor would do with stiff doughs. Even if I were to make one batch of bagels or something like that, it wouldn't tell you much about the longevity of the motor. Another major complaint people have with KitchenAid Pro is that it can't do small batches. Last time I bought this mixer, I couldn't get it to whip 2 egg whites at all. No matter how long I ran it, I couldn't get stiff peaks. But that's before I knew about the bowl adjustment. I tried this test again after I correctly adjusted the bowl and it went a lot better. It took about 6 minutes to get the stiff peak stage, about 3 times as long as it would take my small KitchenAid mixer, but it did eventually work. The moral of the story is that if you are buying a KitchenAid Pro, you should probably also get a cheap little hand mixer for little jobs like 1 or 2 egg whites or whipping small quantities of cream. Now, what about the pedal attachment? How did it do with small batches typical of home kitchens? I tried it on my standard batch of pâte à choux and it worked just fine. Now let's talk about the price. How much KitchenAid Pro costs depend on the color you want and on your patience. If you're willing to wait for a holiday sale or for Costco to get them in stock, you can bring your price down from about $400 to only $250. That's what I did. I figured if I waited for 4 years, another few months won't make much of a difference. The link to the mixer is in the description below. Here are more thought-provoking culinary videos for you to check out, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.